Hey everyone, it's Harris. Harris? New username, who dis? But you know me, I'm still making that wacky Happy Wheels content like it's 2012. Alright, what we talking about today? Right! In my previous Happy Wheels speedrun analysis video, I dedicated a few minutes to the level called Head Shooter. I described how the runner UN111 used a safe but effective strategy to complete the level in 69.5 seconds in his any percent run. I also briefly touched on the individual level record strategy, which is far too inconsistent to be used in a full game run. This is a run of 43.2 seconds by speedrunner Andres, the fastest such run for which verifiable video evidence exists. In this replay, the bull runs into the gunman and kills him. One frame after the bull makes contact, Andres presses space to fire. The gunman's head flies forward and goes off screen. About 2 seconds later, the win banner appears. Clearly, there is some kind of glitch at play here. This is not an intended outcome of the level. You're not supposed to be able to win after the gunman is killed. Nobody in the Happy Wheels community seems to understand how this glitch works. Just listen to second place holder Armageddon15 and his reaction of utter disbelief when he saw the glitch for the first time in one of his own runs.
Oh my. That counts.
Since I was already covering this level for my any percent root analysis, I really wanted to be able to explain the glitch, or at least to give my 2 cents. So I went off of what I could see in the 2 available video runs. In both Andres and Armageddon's runs, I can see that the gunman's head is launched to the right when the bull gores him. That must be significant, right? I figured that there must be an invisible trigger on the right side of the level area that initiates the win, and that trigger is activated either by one of the gunman's body parts or by some other shape that consists the rigging that makes the gunman move. By colliding with the bull in a very particular way, it is possible to launch these shapes forward at a high speed. Perhaps it was then possible to activate the level win trigger sooner than would normally be possible. This hypothesis made sense in my mind, but it was based on very little available evidence. I needed a second opinion, just to be sure that the thoughts in my brain weren't completely stupid. So I shared an unfinished draft of my video with a fellow speedrunner, Dre. Dre is the long-time record holder in the demo percent category, and my main collaborator in Happy Wheels theory crafting. Dre wasn't 100% convinced by my hypothesis, but after I explained my thoughts to him in a little bit more detail, we both agreed that my hypothesis was the best explanation that either of us could come up with, given the available information. And that's where we left it off. But on March 5th, a few days after I published that video, I randomly felt the compulsion to start playing this level again. I don't know what it was. Maybe I felt that I could put this level aside if I could just beat my personal best time of 61.6 seconds. The minute barrier loomed tantalizingly close. If I could just get my movement to be slightly tighter, I could get into that exclusive sub-60 club, all without having to reproduce an extremely inconsistent and poorly understood glitch. So on that day, I sat down and grinded this one level for about an hour and a half. And in that time, I made no real progress towards a new PB. I had several runs that were on a good pace, but the bull stopped me each time. Just when I was about to give up, I happened, completely by accident, upon what is by far the strangest glitch I have ever seen in Happy Wheels. Head Shooter is one of the most mechanically complex and graphically taxing featured levels in Happy Wheels. The Box 2D engine, which is built primarily on legacy programming from the Flash Player generation, really struggles to rein in this epic level, and freezes are common. The level freezes when the frame rate goes extremely low, sometimes into the single digits. At a certain point, the game will get stuck indefinitely, trying to render a single frame. I've noticed that this happens especially often when there's a lot of flying bullshit on the screen, and also sometimes when I spam the spacebar especially quickly. Being able to freeze the game, on its own, isn't anything too interesting. You can get a similar effect just by blowing up a bunch of bodies at once. But that's not the glitch that I wanted to bring to your attention. What I really want to discuss is this. What? I was on a seemingly normal run up to the tree. The wooden boards on the tree started to move around in a strange way after I shot them, but that's not anything too uncommon in this level. The boards didn't do any damage to the gunman, and he was free to walk past. But right after the axe thrower appeared on screen, the game froze. This freeze was unexpected, to say the least, as the frame rate had been relatively stable to that point. I sighed to myself, resigned to the fact that the run was lost. I clicked the pause button, intending to restart the level and try again. But when I clicked pause, something very strange happened. Something that I'd never seen before, and that I still can't explain. The game didn't stay froze. Instead, the gunman's movement advanced by exactly 4 frames, at which point the gunman and the axe thrower both exploded into bloody meat and were shot to the right at a high speed. Only then did the pause menu appear. When I unpaused the game, the meat chunks continued to fly rightward, and they went really, really far. Though it's impossible to tell from my video alone, I think that a few pieces briefly went out of bounds, judging by the blood splatters that were generated on top of this big blue void. In the level editor, this particular shade of blue is used to represent out of bounds. But you'd never be able to see out of bounds during gameplay, or so I thought. And it's not only the gunman's body that gets moved all over the place. The bullet icon flies up out of the bottom right corner, along with the various numbers that are supposed to represent the number of remaining rounds. And this strange blue shape also appears briefly. I don't know what this is. It definitely resembles the vehicle that Wheelchair Guy rides in at the bottom of the screen. I've gotten a few brief glimpses of this vehicle due to the foreground glitching out and disappearing, but I don't know of any way that this shape and the vehicle at the bottom of the screen could possibly be the same object. The level's point of view remains at its usual Y coordinate, which is based on Wheelchair Guy's position in the level. I don't know how the vehicle could possibly move upward without moving Wheelchair Guy along with it. I am dubbing this previously undocumented glitch the pause warp. The glitch worked at first when I was actually playing the game, and then exactly the same when I later reviewed the replay. In both cases, the bodies were not shot rightward until I hit pause. Unfortunately, I wasn't recording when it actually happened, and I haven't been able to reproduce this glitch since, so I only have video proof of the replay. Not only does this glitch look extremely weird and interesting, the timing of its discovery is just amazing. Just a few days before I discovered this glitch, Dre and I were bouncing around ideas of how we could try to better understand the wind glitch shown in the individual level record. Dre postulated that, if we were able to somehow extend the width of the game window to see farther to the right than we normally would, then we may be able to see any objects that may be out there on the right side of the level area, and that may interact with the flying body parts. Completely by accident, I was able to effectively enact the same outcome, seeing farther than I'd be able to normally, and I did it without having to change the dimensions of the game window. Though it's awesome to be able to see this area of the level, doing so didn't really answer our questions. In this replay, I don't see any shapes that clearly stand out to me as objects that would be activated upon contact with a flying body part, and that would cause a level win to initiate. If there is a trigger out here somewhere that activates the win, I can't see it, because triggers are invisible during gameplay. Only physical shapes would be visible. Well, at least we can put that hypothetical method aside for now. What's so insane about this glitch isn't even the fact that the gunman's body is launched forward quickly due to an unexplained mechanism. Though they achieved it through different means, speedrunner Andres and Armageddon 15 both have video runs that show essentially what I'm describing. And judging by the times listed in the browser and the comments left by the players who achieved these times, I suspect that at least 70 other runners have achieved similar outcomes. I also found one Flash player replay that's accurate enough to be played to completion in the JavaScript port. It's a 43.0 by the player SSS the Fool. What a name. It definitely looks like SSS used the same method that resulted in a win for Andres and Armageddon, though the gunman's body parts seem to fly off in completely different directions when the inputs are reiterated in the JavaScript port. What's so unusual about my one replay, what's so inexplicable, is that we're even able to see the body parts flying forward in the way that we see them. Mind you, the perspective of the game window does not follow the gunman. It follows Wheelchair Guy, who is down here under the foreground. In Andres and Armageddon's runs, the perspective barely moves at all from the area before the bull. In my own unsuccessful attempts to recreate Andres' record run, the perspective is nudged slightly to the left when the bull makes contact. I can even hear Wheelchair Guy's bones crunching and his iconic scream after the impact of the bull. But in my pause warp replay, the game window doesn't stay in place. It doesn't get nudged just a little bit in the direction that the bull is moving. The perspective zips a huge distance across the level along with the gunman's body parts. After it slams against the out-of-bounds barrier, it rebounds back to the left and settles just a little bit to the right of where the screen was when the game froze. So the pause warp doesn't only move the gunman and the axe thrower, it also compels Wheelchair Guy to move forward at approximately the same speed. When Wheelchair Guy slams into the out-of-bounds at a high speed and rebounds back, I don't hear his bones breaking, nor do I see any of his blood dripping on the small sliver of background that's visible under the foreground at the bottom of the screen. The end card also doesn't appear. Usually when the gunman is killed, this initiates a sequence in which Wheelchair Guy is released from the vehicle that holds him at his usual Y coordinate. He is then able to fall down slightly into a black hole, which warps him up to the top left corner of the game area. In this corner there's a yellow end card that reads, "You are dead." For some reason, this end card does not appear at the end of my pause warp replay. The game has not registered that the gunman has been killed, and Wheelchair Guy is allowed to stay at his normal Y coordinate. All of these observations tell me that Wheelchair Guy is actually alive at the end of my pause warp run. I just can't move him in any way, because the mechanism that moves Wheelchair Guy and the gunman is destroyed. Everything about this makes absolutely no sense to me. I am struggling to wrap my brain around the outcomes that I am viewing with my eyes, and that I somehow invented with my own hands. It's simply implausible that Wheelchair Guy would smash against the out-of-bounds at such an extreme speed, and that the energy of the impact would not be enough to obliterate him instantly. We've seen already that he can be injured by far lesser impacts. To borrow an expression from the nuclear physicist and Nobel laureate Ernest Rutherford, it was almost as if you fired a 15-inch shell at a piece of tissue paper, and it came back and hit you. In this case, the tissue paper is Wheelchair Guy's bones, and the 15-inch shell is the out-of-bounds or something. And, yeah. I tried for hours to reproduce my first pause warp run, just so that I could have a second example to compare against it. While I had no success in reproducing this exact outcome, I did discover a different but likely related outcome. By beating the hell out of the spacebar right in front of the tree, I'm able to shoot the tree in such a way that the wooden boards come out flying all over the level. But in this particular instance, they don't make contact with the gunman until he's already past the bull. One wooden board gets stuck in place in this precise position. When the gun contacts the board, the game freezes. When I pause the game, the perspective is immediately teleported to the start of the level, and the gunman is nowhere to be seen. Why this warp is instantaneous, while the one that sends the gunman forward takes 4 frames to wind up, and a few more for the perspective to zip all of the way to the out-of-bounds area, I have no idea. It's clear to me that I've discovered a previously undocumented emergent property of Happy Wheels, so my conventional understandings of how objects interact in this physics sandbox go out of the window. I previously thought that pausing had no effects on the simulated physics of a level. After all, how could it? When I pause, all shapes are suspended at their current coordinates, with their vector values stored. The physics calculations do not start to update again until the game is unpaused. Now, I see that that's not quite true in all instances. In both of my replays, pausing has a direct effect on the outcome of the simulated physics in the level. You will never see a warp of this nature if you just freeze the game and let it continue to be frozen without pausing. The warp only activates when I hit pause. If someone can do a lot and I mean a lot more testing, we may be able to figure out why pause warps happen in some instances of game freezing, but not in others. We may be able to force the game to freeze in other graphically demanding levels, and use warps to access previously inaccessible areas. This method may even be useful in breaking some individual level speedrun records. I've gotten some really weird outcomes to occur in Dawn of the Dead level 7, but never to the effect of actually making the game freeze. That is probably a subject for another video. This is a very strange and exciting time in Happy Wheels. I can't even imagine what may still be out there, waiting to be discovered. What I would really like to do is to enlist some other players of Happy Wheels, and to ask them to do more testing with this level, because I really do not think that I have the knowledge or the resources to figure out all of this on my own. I've asked some of my friends to view my replay on their own computers, just to make sure that this pause warp isn't being caused by some weird quirk that's unique to my personal computer. We found that the replay results in the same outcome, as long as it is played in Firefox on a Windows 10 computer. That is my preferred setup for playing Happy Wheels. Like the original Flash Player version, the JavaScript port has some minor compatibility differences across platforms that cause replays to be inaccurate. Most of these inaccuracies don't result in anything interesting. They just cause the gunman to die at some other point in the level. I did see one peculiar outcome when I reiterated my replay in Chrome on my same Windows 10 computer. The replay plays very similarly up to the tree. The game doesn't freeze when the axe thrower appears on screen. Instead, the gunman is able to walk forward until he is killed by the bull. After the bull destroys his body, the game freezes not once, but twice. Each time, I pause and unpause the replay to make it unfreeze. It's unclear to me why the game freezes twice, and neither freeze seems to affect any change in the physics of the level. The body parts continue to move rightward at their previous trajectories, instead of being compelled quickly to the right or in any other unexpected direction that would be indicative of a pause warp. I don't mean to say that the pause warp is only possible in Firefox on Windows 10, because I don't know that. I'm only saying that my replay, my specific sequence of inputs, only results in a pause warp when played on that browser and that operating system. There may very well exist other sequences of inputs that result in a pause warp when iterated on other operating systems. I encourage any interested viewers to test the level for themselves and to view my own replay for themselves. The link is in the description. You may discover something that I have not seen. Alright, Harris, that's all very crazy and interesting. But how is any of this related to your retrospective series? Well, considering all of this new information, it seems that my hypothesis from the previous video is sufficiently debunked. In my attempts to explain the very unusual outcome of the world record strategy in Head Shooter, I fixated squarely on the gunman's body parts that are compelled to the right. I thought that, surely, those body parts must be activating some trigger that initiates the win. But my pause warp replay also features body parts flying to the right at a high speed, and they go much farther than in Andres and Armageddon's runs. So, if anything, my run has more space to activate any triggers that may be out there. And yet, my replay did not result in a win. So clearly, something else is at play here. Some other mechanism is activating the win in the record run. Maybe it has something to do with the ball, or maybe the mechanism is completely outside of the scope of what I can see in a replay. The individual level record route in Head Shooter is far more complex than I originally realized, and it will continue to be one of the greatest mysteries of Happy Wheels. In many ways, this glitch reminds me of the Death Warp in Red Ball. Both glitches involve a character apparently being killed, but then somehow activating a level win trigger that's not supposed to be activated until the character has progressed a good distance farther down the level. A related Death Warp glitch in Red Ball 2 stumped everyone in the community for 12 years. It wasn't until 2021 that the speedrunners Maximum and Sage finally figured out the mechanism of these two warps by meticulously analyzing the programming of Red Ball's source code. If the win glitch in Head Shooter is anything like the Death Warp in Red Ball, then there is an answer out there, somewhere. Maybe we wouldn't even need the source code of Happy Wheels to figure it out. Maybe the level's XML data would be enough. I actually reached out to Maximum to ask him about the possibility of someone discovering the XML data on their own. Maximum is the foremost creator of speedrun analysis videos for Flash games, and I know him well enough through the Happy Wheels community that I was comfortable reaching out. I knew that Maximum had access to an offline archive of most of the featured levels in Happy Wheels, which was actually made as a way for future players to be able to conveniently access the correct sequence of levels to be played in the any percent route. I looked through the files of this archive myself, and I thought that, just maybe, the XML data might be in there in a readable format. I wasn't skilled enough in data mining to find the data with no direction, but I still had a feeling. Maximum was extremely helpful to me. Not only did he confirm to me that the XML data are stored in the any percent archive, he took time out of his own day to find the correct file and to run commands on it to find the specific sequence of XML data that corresponds to Head Shooter. While this was an awesome discovery, it ultimately ended in disappointment for me. The data seemed to be encoded wrong, and neither Maximum nor I could figure out how to re-encode them into a readable format. In the file's current format, the only information that I can make out legibly is in the level descriptions of various feature levels, and the data are so compressed that they probably aren't even usable, even if we could figure out how to encode them correctly. If anyone else wants to try encoding the XML data for themselves, you're free to do so. The Flash Player Archive is freely available under the Resources tab on speedrun.com. The XML data are stored in an SQLite 3 file. But again, I don't anticipate that anyone will be able to get any usable data out of that file, as it is extremely compressed. If the creator of Head Shooter, Vkey, wants to step forward and make the XML data public, we'd be able to view the win trigger in the level editor. A skilled and extremely dedicated Happy Wheels player may be able to figure out how the win trigger can be activated under a given set of circumstances. But that player will not be me, because I have horrible organizational skills and I know like 3 lines of programming. I'm just the guy who has very weird luck when it comes to encountering glitches in browser games. Don't ask me how I do it. At the end of the day, I still have no idea how the win condition in Head Shooter is activated in the individual level record run. I was launched into a journey of discovery and theorizing that has left me with far more questions than there are answers, all because the game froze and I hesitated for a second before hitting the restart button. Thank you all for watching. And a big thank you to Maximum for answering my questions about the XML data stored in the any percent archive. Hey, one more comment before I end this. For all of these years, I've referred to this level as Head Shooter. It's come to my attention that it's actually Head Shotter. There's an O missing in the level name. This is one of the most complex Happy Wheels levels ever. It likely took over 100 hours to build, and Vkey didn't mind to double check the spelling before clicking publish. Though, I'm not one to throw shade. Okay, bye.